does it help having that developmental contract in place to kind of alleviate a little bit of the pressure on you as you try to find your way with things?
Honestly, not as much as you probably think. My goal is still to make a 12-player roster. But again, like, I'm super thankful that I'm even considered to be on that contract. But again, like, the main goal is to be able to come to the 12 spot.
Look at that answer. Most rookies in Justine Pissott's position would have taken the easy way out right there. She's got a developmental contract with the Indiana Fever. She just got drafted, and the reporter basically handed her a softball question about pressure. The expected answer, yeah, I'm grateful. This takes some weight off my shoulders. But watch what she does instead. She doesn't just say thank you and move on. She makes it crystal clear that being on a developmental contract isn't her endgame. Her goal is the 12-player roster. Period. That's not relief. If you're hearing in her voice, that's hunger.
I was drafted and I have a developmental contract. It does relieve some of the pressure. Like, this has been my dream for all of my life, to play in the WNBA, to get drafted. Yeah, this is, I can breathe a sigh of relief. She didn't do that. As thankful as she is, she wanted to make it clear, absolutely clear, that she's not just happy to be where she is right now. There's more to this thing. It reminds me.
Here's what makes that response so significant. The Indiana Fever made a strategic move before training camp even started. They signed Pissott to a developmental contract, not a standard one. And there's a specific reason for that timing. Under WNBA rules, you cannot sign a player to a standard contract and then move them to a developmental contract without waiving them first. But you can do the reverse, sign them developmental, then promote them to standard. So, the Fever are keeping their options open while protecting themselves from losing her if cuts come down to the wire. But Pissott just told everyone within earshot, including the coaching staff making those roster decisions, that she's not content with being a safety net. She's competing for a real spot.
We're not just happy to be here. We're here to win this thing. Our goal was not just to get here. Okay, yeah, we're grateful that we're here, but this isn't it. The it is, I gotta move on to the next level. That's the fire in my belly. That's my ultimate goal. And a lot of times when you're just happy to be there, you don't say what Justine said. And so she says, no, it's not the relief that you think it is. No.
That fire in the belly mentality. You see it in championship teams all the time. There are players who make the playoffs and say, we're just happy to be here. Then there are players who make the playoffs and say, we're not here to participate. We're here to win this thing. Same opportunity, completely different mindset. PA is showing the second mentality. She's not treating this developmental contract like an achievement to celebrate. She's treating it like a stepping stone she needs to get past as quickly as possible. And the thing about leadership and communication, which matters more than people realize in professional sports, is clarity. She could have been vague. She could have said something like, I'm taking it one day at a time. Or, I'm just focused on getting better. Generic athlete speak that doesn't commit to anything. Instead, she gave a direct answer with a specific goal, make the 12-player roster. That kind of clarity tells you something about how she approaches competition, versatility to the in.
16 points on the night, and book it. Before the Fever knocks it down.
There was no hesitation on that shot. But look at her here. She's calling for the ball. She's in ready position so that she can catch, square up, and shoot. You don't want to come out and guard me? Okay.
16 points on the night.
This time she is defended closer. Still not a problem.
Now, let's talk about what happened on the court in New York, because this is where words meet reality. First preseason game of 2025, Fever vs. Liberty. Pause finished with 16 points. But it's not just the numbers that matter here. Watch her positioning. She's calling for the ball. She's in ready position before the pass even comes. Catch, square up, shoot. No hesitation. The defender has a hand up, pretty close contest. Doesn't matter. Splash. Next possession, same thing. This time, the defender is right on her foot on the three-point line. Still doesn't matter. Another three-pointer. What you're seeing is someone who's done this 10,000 times in practice. The shot is automatic. The confidence is real. And this wasn't against second-string competition. This is the New York Liberty, the team that just won the WNBA championship.
But I really think her passing ability is going to help her as well.
And that one gets to rattle in from Pissott.
And here once again, you see she's ready for the pass. Catches it, look at hand up. Pretty close, look at that. Defense has the foot right on the line here. So pretty close, not a problem.
But I really think her passing ability is going to help her as well.
And gets the roll. Back at it in practice after that game. Here she is 1 day ago, putting up.
Here's what separates players who make rosters from players who get cut. It's not just talent. There are talented players who don't make teams every single year. It's the combination of talent, work ethic, and the ability to perform when the pressure is on. Pissott showed all three in that game against New York. She showed she can shoot under defensive pressure. She showed she understands spacing and movement without the ball. And she showed she's not intimidated by the moment. Then you see her back in practice the next day, same gym, same routine, putting up shot after shot after shot, because one good game doesn't secure a roster spot. The work continues, the competition continues, and she knows that every player fighting for those final spots is doing the exact same thing, grinding in the gym, trying to prove they deserve to be there.
First, we had Saturday's game. Realize, okay, she can shoot. Of course, we realized that many of them can shoot and play. And that's why we say, wow, they have some tough decisions to make. I thought it was interesting during the press availability at practice a day ago, how she answered the question about pressure. Pressure because you have been signed to a developmental contract. Does that alleviate some of the pressure? Again, I found her answer interesting. Let's take a look at that portion and then let me talk to you about.
Let's zoom out for a second and talk about what the Fever are dealing with roster-wise, because this context matters for understanding Pissott's situation. After that preseason game in New York, people started asking the obvious question, who stays and who goes? The core of the team is set. We know who the key players are, but there are always those bubble spots, the final 2 or 3 roster positions, where the competition is brutal. Multiple players who can all play, who all showed they can shoot and defend, and the coaching staff has to make impossible decisions. That's the reality Pissott is walking into. It's not enough to be good. You have to be better than other good players. You have to give the coaches a reason to choose you over someone else who also had a great preseason, who also works hard, who also wants it badly. The developmental contract gives the Fever flexibility, but it doesn't guarantee Pissott anything. She still has to earn it.
To another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect. Those who watched the Indiana Fever take on the New York Liberty on Saturday in the first preseason game of 2026 started saying, okay, this team has...
Think about the position this puts her in psychologically. On one hand, she has some security. The developmental contract means she's not completely on the outside looking in. She's part of the organization in some capacity. But on the other hand, that's not what she wants. She didn't work her entire life to be a developmental player. She wants to be on the active roster, traveling with the team, playing meaningful minutes. So, there's this tension between gratitude for the opportunity she has and determination to get something more. And that's exactly the tension you heard in her answer to that reporter. Yes, I'm thankful. But no, This doesn't relieve the pressure the way you think it does, because my goal is bigger than this.
I will say there's something to be said for someone who is very clear about what the goal is. And then, of course, knocking down shots in a game, which a lot of them were doing, honestly. And of course, they're all working in practice. We'll see what happens soon enough, because time is a-flying, as it always does in the WNBA. Justine Pissott, everybody. She says her goal is to make a 12-player roster. Right here with the Indiana Fever. No.
Here's what makes Justine Pissott's situation so compelling to watch as this roster battle plays out. She's doing everything right from a competitive standpoint. She's communicating clearly about her goals. She's backing up her words with performance on the court. She's putting in the work in practice. She's showing the right mentality, the kind of mentality that coaches love to see in young players. Not entitled, not complacent, but hungry and focused. But here's the reality of professional sports. Sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. Sometimes there are only 12 spots and 13 players who deserve to make the team. Sometimes the numbers just don't work out in your favor, no matter how well you play or how hard you work. That's the brutal truth about roster cuts. Deserving a spot and getting a spot are two different things. The Fever have decisions to make, and those decisions are coming soon. Training camp is flying by. Preseason games are piling up. Every practice, every scrimmage, every film session is being evaluated. The coaching staff is watching everything. Who fits the system best? Who fills a need? Who has the most upside? Who can contribute right now versus who might develop into something later? These are the questions that determine careers. For Pissott, the developmental contract was step one. Getting drafted was the dream, but making the active roster is the real goal. And she's made it clear to everyone that she's not going to be satisfied with anything less. 16 points against the Liberty in her first preseason game, knocking down threes in practice the next day, telling reporters straight up that her goal is the 12-player roster, not the developmental spot. That's the kind of clarity and confidence that can take you far in this league. But it's also the kind of goal that's incredibly difficult to achieve when you're competing against other talented players who want the exact same thing. The Fever saw something in her when they drafted her. They saw enough to sign her to a developmental contract before camp even started, which tells you they value her potential. But potential and production are different things, and roster spots go to players who can produce now. So, the question becomes, what happens next? Does Pissott continue to perform at the level she showed against New York? Does she find ways to stand out in practice, to show the coaches something they can't ignore? Does she prove that she's not just a good shooter, but someone who can defend, rebound, make the right pass, fit into the team system? Because that's what it takes to go from developmental to standard contract. You have to be undeniable, the clock is ticking, decisions are coming, and Justine Pissott has made it absolutely clear where she stands. She's grateful for the opportunity, but she's not satisfied with it. She wants more. She's working for more. And based on what we saw in New York and what we're seeing in practice, she's got a real shot at making it happen. But in the WNBA, especially on a team like the Fever with championship aspirations, having a shot and securing a spot are two very different things. The next few weeks will determine which side of that line Justine Pissott ends up on. And if that answer she gave the reporter tells us anything, it's that she's going to fight for every inch of that roster spot until the final decision is made.